The studio lights cast a glow across Jimmy Kimmel's stage, bouncing off the midnight blue skyline set behind him. The crowd erupted as the announcer called, "Ladies and gentlemen, Denzel Washington." The applause was thunderous, but the man who stepped onto the stage didn't flash a Hollywood smile or strike a charming pose. Denzel walked with calm weight, like a man carrying more than just celebrity. He shook Jimmy's hand, firm but brief, and took his seat in silence. Jimmy chuckled nervously, he felt it too. This wasn't going to be light banter. "Denzel, you're looking sharp, man," Jimmy started, trying to ease the room. "I gotta ask, do you ever laugh? I mean, you're so serious in all your roles. There has to be a funny guy under that armor." A wave of laughter rolled through the audience, but Denzel didn't even blink. He leaned forward, elbows resting on his thighs, eyes locked on Jimmy. "You think being serious is a costume?" he asked, voice calm but unmistakably direct. "You think pain, sacrifice, truth, are props?" Jimmy tried to laugh it off. No, I'm just saying, people love to see the lighter side of legends like you." Denzel shook his head slowly. "That's the problem. You want the clown version. But when the circus is over, who's left to clean the blood off the floor?" The audience grew quiet. Jimmy adjusted in his chair, clearing his throat. "We're just having fun here, Denzel." "No, you're entertaining distraction," Denzel replied. "And that's fine. But don't confuse entertainment with art. Don't invite me here to be the punchline." Jimmy's smile faded. "Every time you reduce the work to a joke, you're telling millions of young actors watching that their struggle means nothing. That their fathers don't matter. That their stories are just setups for your monologue." The camera cut briefly to the audience, several faces frozen, some even nodding. "And I get it," Denzel continued, his voice still calm, but now loaded with quiet thunder. "This stage feeds on easy laughs. But you don't get to laugh at everything, Jimmy. Not if you claim to respect the craft." There it was. No shouting. No insults. Just truth that landed like a brick. The room was still tense from Denzel's sharp words. Jimmy Kimmel leaned back in his chair, trying to recover his composure with a smirk that didn't quite reach his eyes. "So, we're doing the serious artist thing tonight, huh?" Jimmy quipped, twirling a pen between his fingers. "No jokes allowed?" Denzel didn't blink. "You confuse jokes with disrespect, Jimmy. That's your problem." A wave of surprise rolled across the audience, some gasped, some laughed nervously, unsure if this was still part of the act. Jimmy chuckled, trying to steer the ship back to safety. "Come on, Denzel. It's a comedy show, man. I make jokes. You make movies. We all play our part." Denzel leaned forward, eyes locked. "I don't just make movies. I tell stories. I build legacy. What you call playing a part, I call purpose." Jimmy's smile faltered for a second. "See, the thing about respect," Denzel continued, his voice calm but weighty, "is that you can't fake it. You can't dress it in a suit, stick it behind a desk, and throw punchlines at people who bled for their craft." The studio was dead quiet now. The laughter light had been on for 20 seconds, and not one person responded. Jimmy looked around, almost nervously. All right. So, what, you think I'm a fraud?" Denzel shook his head. "I think you're talented. But I also think you've become comfortable mocking people who actually do the work. That's dangerous. That's lazy." The words landed like bricks. Even the band in the corner paused their light drum taps. And then Denzel did something unexpected. He leaned back, took a breath, and added, "This isn't about ego, Jimmy. It's about remembering that not every laugh is harmless. Some jokes echo in places you've never been. Places I've lived." Jimmy blinked, quiet for once. The silence wasn't awkward, it was heavy. Thoughtful. Real. And just like that, the energy in the room shifted. Kimmel adjusted his suit jacket, then let out a shallow breath, trying to ease the weight in the room. "Denzel, with all due respect, you're making it sound like I've been going around kicking artists in the face for fun." "No," Denzel replied, cool and steady. "But you've been laughing while others do." The audience tensed again. This wasn't the normal rhythm of late-night banter. It had evolved, or devolved, into something raw. Jimmy tried to keep it light. "Look, man, I roast everyone. Politicians, actors, athletes. You're not being singled out." "And that's the problem," Denzel said, locking eyes. "You treat effort like a punchline. You treat pain like it's trending." That line stung. Jimmy hesitated before speaking again. "I admire your work, all right. I've seen Training Day, Glory, Fences, hell, I've cried during the hurricane. But you're sitting here acting like I'm some clown who's never worked a day in his life." Denzel paused, then leaned in slightly. "Let me be clear. I'm not calling you a clown. I'm saying somewhere along the road, you forgot what it's like to respect the ring you're in." Jimmy raised an eyebrow. "Ring? This," Denzel said, motioning to the cameras, the audience, the lights. "This isn't just a studio. It's a stage. A platform. And people watch what you do with it." Jimmy shifted in his seat, his voice quieter now. "So what, you want me to stop joking?" "No," Denzel replied. "I want you to start thinking." The silence that followed was loud. For the first time in the night, Jimmy seemed to truly reflect. The laugh signs had stopped blinking. The band had gone still. Even the crew behind the cameras were fixated. Denzel broke the tension gently. "The mic is power, Jimmy. You can lift people or tear them apart with it. And you've been swinging it like it's a toy." Jimmy's voice, finally, carried no sarcasm. "I hear you." Denzel nodded. "Then do something with it." Jimmy finally turned to the audience, not for a laugh, not for applause, but just to look at them. His smile was gone, replaced by a seriousness few had ever seen from him. "I guess I forgot the difference," he said aloud, "between poking fun and punching down." Denzel didn't let the moment pass quietly. "You didn't forget, Jimmy. You just stopped looking." Jimmy's jaw tightened slightly. "So what now? You want me to turn the show into a lecture series?" Denzel leaned back in his chair, arms folded. "No, I want you to mean something. This chair you sit in, every night, it doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the people who give you their time, their exhaustion, their hope." The crowd was silent. "And when you mock people who barely make rent," Denzel continued, "or laugh at a man struggling with addiction because it's good TV, you send a message. That struggle is comedy. That suffering is spectacle." Jimmy swallowed hard. "That's not my intention." "I know," Denzel nodded. "But intention without awareness is like driving blind. Sooner or later, someone gets hit." Jimmy looked down at his desk, then back up at Denzel. "Then help me see it. You want me to use this mic better? Tell me how." Denzel's face softened just a little, but his tone remained firm. "Start with the people you never invite. The voices you mute. The truths that make you uncomfortable." A woman in the audience whispered, "He's right." Jimmy caught it. "That's fair," he said, slowly. "That's really fair." Denzel leaned forward one last time. "You want to be funny? Be brilliant. Be bold. Just don't be blind." The band didn't play. No cue cards flashed. Just silence and two men on a stage, one learning, the other holding him to it. Jimmy shifted in his chair, visibly torn between defensiveness and awakening. He wasn't used to silence, his studio thrived on it being broken every 10 seconds by laughter or applause. But now, it felt like a courtroom, and Denzel was the damn judge. "You've had legends sit here," Denzel said, his voice low but firm. "Ali, Freeman, Chappelle. You cracked jokes, sure. But somewhere along the way, you stopped asking why they do what they do." Jimmy sighed. "Maybe I got too comfortable, maybe I forgot the weight of the room." Denzel leaned in. "The weight never left. You just stopped feeling it." That line hit hard. Comedy's not the enemy, Denzel continued. But it's not a shield either. You don't get to laugh instead of listening. Especially when people out there are dying just to be heard. Jimmy blinked fast, like trying to reset. I built this stage for conversation, Denzel. You built it for attention, Denzel corrected him. Now it's time to earn the respect that attention brings. The crowd was still holding their breath. Jimmy looked down at his desk and slowly turned the mug with his logo on it, as if seeing it differently. And if I start again? Then start with truth, Denzel said. Unfiltered. Even when it doesn't trend. Even when it costs you. Jimmy looked up, genuinely. That might lose me ratings. Denzel cracked half a smile. Then maybe ratings aren't the only thing worth keeping. The audience didn't cheer. They didn't clap. But there was a collective shift, an invisible nod. Something had changed. Not dramatically. But irrevocably. Kimmel adjusted his tie. So what now? Denzel stared straight into the camera. Now? Now you either become the host people need, or just another guy who wasted a mic. The light on the applause sign flickered, but nobody looked. Because no one wanted to miss a second. The silence in the studio had become its own character, looming, undeniable. Jimmy Kimmel, usually the master of deflection, looked like a man realizing his own script no longer worked. He glanced at the camera, then back to Denzel. You think I've been hiding behind humor? He asked, his voice softer now, unsure if it was a question or confession. Denzel didn't flinch. You've been building a wall with it. Every punchline. Another brick. And when real pain knocks, you joke it away. Jimmy swallowed hard. The laughter track wasn't there to save him this time. You invite people on this show, Denzel continued, and when they bleed truth, you mop it up with a laugh. But some stories aren't punchlines. They're warnings. They're scars. The audience didn't dare move. Even the camera crew stood still, as if afraid any sound might shatter the weight of Denzel's words. Jimmy nodded slowly, as if each syllable hit a different nerve. So what should I do, Denzel? Cancel the comedy? Turn this into a church? Denzel leaned forward. No. Just stop pretending jokes are justice. Be funny, sure. But be aware. When a black kid dies in the street, that's not a setup to your monologue. That's someone's child. Someone's future. Kimmel closed his eyes briefly. Maybe to process. Maybe to pray. You ever notice, Denzel added, how the hardest truths never get a laugh, but they always get remembered? A long pause. Then Jimmy sat upright. Not defensively, differently. Like a man realizing the joke might have gone too far, too long. Then maybe, tonight, the laugh track stops. A murmur moved through the crowd. Not applause. Not yet. Just breath. Alive. Present. Denzel tilted his head, just slightly. Maybe tonight, you showed up. No one smiled. No one needed to. And for the first time in years, Jimmy Kimmel stopped talking that it wasn't just the live audience that felt it. Twitter exploded within minutes. Clips of Denzel's words, raw and unfiltered, began circulating before the show even ended. #DenzelUncut trended faster than any guest appearance in late-night history. Back in the studio, the atmosphere was no longer that of a comedy show. It felt more like a courtroom, and Jimmy was on the stand. You ever gonna air this? Denzel asked, his voice firm but not aggressive. Jimmy looked over at his producers. He knew the answer, and so did the audience. We don't cut honesty, Jimmy said quietly, almost to himself. But his voice was shaky, like a man realizing he could no longer hide behind his team's edits or carefully rehearsed questions. Denzel nodded, then stood up from his chair. I didn't come here for applause, he said. I came to remind people that platforms carry weight. And that pretending to care is worse than silence. The audience erupted, not in laughter, but in something deeper. Applause mixed with reflection. Cheers mixed with shame. People weren't clapping for entertainment. They were clapping for truth. One woman near the front wiped a tear. A man in the back stood with his arms crossed, not in defiance, but in respect. Jimmy finally rose, extending a hand to Denzel. But Denzel didn't shake it. Instead, he leaned in and whispered, just loud enough for the mic to catch it, "Next time you laugh, ask yourself who's crying off-screen." And then he walked off the set. No dramatic exit. No mic drop. Just silence. A studio full of people with nothing clever left to say. Jimmy Kimmel stared after him, his hand still outstretched. The cameras kept rolling. And America kept watching. Because some moments, you can't edit out. By the time Denzel walked off that stage, the show wasn't Kimmel's anymore, it was Denzel's. CNN ran a banner, "Washington stuns late night, demands respect for the craft." Fox twisted it into something else, of course. But it didn't matter. The raw clip was already everywhere. No cuts. No edits. No laugh track. Backstage, the energy was electric. Crew members stood frozen. A young stagehand whispered to a colleague, "Did that just happen?" And on the screen above them, replay after replay of Denzel leaning in, "Next time you laugh, ask yourself who's crying off-screen." Kimmel was still sitting in his chair when producers approached. "Do you want to go to commercial?" "No," he said flatly. "We already did." He forced a smile as the camera came back. Well, folks, that escalated quickly. The audience didn't laugh. Because they felt it too. This wasn't a roast. This wasn't banter. This was truth weaponized, and Jimmy had no shield. Then, as if to pour salt on the wound, Denzel's publicist tweeted the full exchange. Unedited. Captioned only, "Some truths don't need applause." That tweet alone hit 30 million views in under 2 hours. Celebrities chimed in. Viola Davis tweeted, "That's how you use a stage." Ava DuVernay reposted the clip with fire emojis. But perhaps the most surprising? Dave Chappelle simply posted, "That's why they fear him." Meanwhile, Kimmel was forced to address it on the next night's monologue. He tried lighthearted, "So, apparently I've been Denzel'd. Not sure what that means, but I think my soul hurts." The audience chuckled, but it was hollow. They'd seen something real. And real doesn't fade in 24 hours. America wasn't laughing. They were listening. By morning, the headlines weren't about Jimmy Kimmel. They were about Denzel. The night truth took the mic. Denzel Washington's monologue America needed. And one that hit hardest. Hollywood laughed. America didn't. Clips of the confrontation had spread across every platform like wildfire. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was different. Unscripted. Unfiltered. Undeniably real. Podcasts dissected every word Denzel had said. You don't mock people who live through pain just to land a joke. That's not comedy. That's cowardice, one host said. Another added, Denzel didn't just call out Jimmy. He called out a whole culture of clowns who pretend suffering is satire. Social media turned the confrontation into a rallying cry. The hashtag respect the craft trended worldwide. Artists, writers, even comedians came forward sharing their own experiences of having their work diminished or turned into punchlines. Meanwhile, Jimmy's team scrambled. A source close to the production leaked that a crisis meeting had been held with ABC executives. The network feared losing credibility with audiences who no longer viewed late-night shows as spaces of authenticity. A journalist asked Kimmel directly on a morning show, "Do you think Denzel was right?" His answer, I wasn't ready for someone who doesn't play by the rules." Denzel, for his part, remained silent, publicly. But privately, he was preparing something bigger. In his home office, scripts lay scattered across the floor. One labeled, "The joke stops here." It wasn't a movie. It wasn't a speech. It was something else. And it would answer one question. Can the truth be louder than the stage? It wasn't a comeback. It was a reckoning. Denzel Washington stood center stage once again, but not on Jimmy's set. This time, it was a public forum broadcast live on all major networks. No laugh track. No desk. No cue cards. Just a single stool. And a nation watching. He looked out across the sea of faces, then straight into the lens. "I'm not here to cancel Jimmy Kimmel," he began, his voice steady, calm, deliberate. "I'm here to cancel the idea that mockery equals courage." You could hear a pin drop. He continued, "If your comedy only works when you're punching down, then maybe the joke was never that funny to begin with." Clips of Jimmy's past segments began to play behind him, edited not for laughs, but context. Refugees turned into punchlines. Veterans reduced to sketches. Teachers, workers, mothers, all made into memes. "I'm not perfect," Denzel added. "But I've learned that silence is just agreement in a tuxedo. And I didn't come this far to wear lies like fashion." He didn't raise his voice. He raised the bar. Applause didn't explode, it built, wave after wave. Slowly. Earnestly. It wasn't performance. It was recognition. And then, unexpectedly, someone walked on stage. Jimmy Kimmel. No suit. No jokes. No smirk. He looked at Denzel, then at the audience. "I was wrong," he said simply. No cue for cheers. No redemption arc. Just truth, raw and uncomfortable. Denzel extended a hand. Jimmy shook it. But the message was clear. This wasn't about forgiveness. It was about responsibility. That night, millions didn't go to bed thinking about a feud. They went to bed rethinking what they laughed at, and why. And Denzel? He walked off stage, quietly. No victory lap. Just a man who said enough. And meant it. This wasn't a feud. It was a mirror. In a world where applause often rewards arrogance, Denzel chose to honor the truth. He didn't shout. He didn't insult. He simply exposed the stage, the show, and all of us watching. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing a man can do, is not raise his voice, but raise the standard. And tonight, the bar has been reset.